the fast food empire that changed how America eats. Picture this, it's 1954 and a 52-year-old milkshake machine salesman named Ray Kroc drives his Cadillac across the dusty roads of San Bernardino, California, chasing what seems like an impossible order. Two brothers had just purchased 8 of his multi-mixer machines, enough to make 40 milkshakes simultaneously. No restaurant had ever needed that kind of volume. What Kroc discovered that day wasn't just a busy burger joint, it was a revolution in the making. The McDonald brothers had created something that would fundamentally change not just how Americans ate, but how the entire world thought about food, business, and the very concept of efficiency itself. Ray Kroc didn't invent the hamburger, didn't create the first restaurant, and wasn't even the founder of McDonald's. But what he did was far more profound. He took a simple concept and built it into a $200 billion empire that would feed billions of people and create the template for modern franchise business forever. When Kroc first laid eyes on the original McDonald's restaurant, he witnessed something that had never existed before in human history: the Speedee service system. Brothers Richard and Maurice McDonald had spent years perfecting what they called their factory assembly line approach to food preparation. Instead of the traditional short order cook making entire meals one at a time, they broke down hamburger production into individual tasks. One person grilled the meat, another added condiments, a third wrapped the burgers, and a fourth handled the fries. The result was revolutionary. They could serve a hamburger, fries, and a drink in 30 seconds, compared to the industry standard of 30 minutes. The brothers had reduced their menu from 25 items to just 9, focusing on hamburgers, cheeseburgers, fries, shakes, milk, coffee, root beer, orange drink, and cherry pie. Each hamburger cost 15 cents and came with ketchup, onions, mustard, and 2 pickles. No substitutions, no special orders. The kitchen was visible to customers through large windows, creating an unprecedented level of transparency in food preparation. This wasn't just fast food, it was the birth of systematic, scalable food service. But the McDonald brothers were content with their single location, pulling in around $350,000 annually by the early 1950s. They had already licensed their system to about 20 other operators with mixed results, and they weren't particularly interested in aggressive expansion. Ray Kroc saw something entirely different when he looked at their operation. He didn't just see a successful restaurant. He saw a system that could be replicated infinitely. Kroc understood that the real genius wasn't in the food itself, but in the standardization, the training, and the absolute consistency that made it possible for anyone to recreate the McDonald's experience anywhere in the world. On April 15, 1955, Kroc opened his first McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois, and from day one he implemented standards that went far beyond what the original brothers had imagined. Every patty had to weigh exactly 1.6 ounces, every bun had to be toasted for precisely 17 seconds, and every bag of fries had to contain exactly the same number of potato strips. Kroc personally trained the first franchisees, teaching them not just how to cook food, but how to maintain equipment, manage inventory, hire employees, and create the kind of customer experience that would make people return day after day. The franchise model that Kroc developed became the foundation upon which modern American business expansion would be built, but his approach was radically different from existing franchise systems. Instead of simply selling the McDonald's name and walking away, Kroc maintained unprecedented control over every aspect of the operation. He required franchisees to attend a rigorous training program at what would eventually become Hamburger University, established in 1961 in the basement of a McDonald's restaurant in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. This wasn't just a catchy name, it was a comprehensive business school that taught everything from proper French fry preparation to advanced restaurant management techniques. Franchisees had to follow exact specifications for restaurant design, equipment purchases, food suppliers, and even the uniforms their employees wore. Kroc charged franchisees an initial fee of $950 plus an ongoing royalty of 1.9% of gross sales. But more importantly, he retained ownership of the real estate under most McDonald's locations. This real estate strategy, suggested by financial advisor Harry Sonneborn, transformed McDonald's from a restaurant company into one of the world's largest real estate empires. By controlling the land, Kroc ensured that franchisees remained committed to McDonald's standards while creating a massive secondary revenue stream that would eventually dwarf profits from burger sales. The expansion of McDonald's in the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s coincided perfectly with massive changes in American society that Kroc had the foresight to anticipate and capitalize upon. The Federal Highway Act of 1956 created the interstate highway system, and Kroc strategically positioned McDonald's restaurants near highway exits and in rapidly growing suburban communities. As American families increasingly moved to the suburbs and relied on automobiles for transportation, McDonald's became perfectly positioned to serve this new mobile lifestyle. The company pioneered the drive-through window concept, tested first in Arizona in 1975, recognizing that Americans wanted convenience above almost everything else. But Kroc's real genius lay in understanding the changing nature of the American family. As more women entered the workforce and family schedules became increasingly hectic, the idea of a quick, affordable, predictable meal became incredibly appealing. A McDonald's hamburger in New York tasted exactly the same as one in California, and busy parents knew they could feed their families for under $5 without any surprises. By 1961, McDonald's was opening new locations at a rate of more than one per day, and by 1965, there were over 700 McDonald's restaurants across the United States. The McDonald's menu evolution during this period reflected Kroc's obsessive attention to customer preferences and operational efficiency, but every addition was carefully tested and systematically implemented. The Big Mac, created by Pittsburgh franchisee Jim Delegati in 1967, became the chain's signature item and demonstrated how local innovations could be scaled across the entire system. The filet fish, developed by Cincinnati franchisee Lou Groen in 1962 to serve Catholic customers during Lent, showed how McDonald's could adapt to regional and religious dietary preferences while maintaining operational simplicity. The Egg McMuffin, introduced in 1972, opened the massive breakfast market and extended McDonald's operating hours into previously untapped day parts. Each menu addition underwent extensive testing, not just for taste, but for how it would impact kitchen workflow, preparation time, ingredient sourcing, and employee training requirements. Kroc rejected countless menu suggestions that didn't meet his standards for speed and consistency, including pizza, which he felt would slow down service, and elaborate sandwich combinations that would complicate kitchen operations. The famous McDonald's French fries, originally cooked in beef tallow and considered by many to be the best in the fast food industry, became a crucial differentiator that kept customers returning even as competitors emerged. By 1970, McDonald's was serving over 5 billion customers annually, and the average customer visit time had been reduced to under 3 minutes. The marketing and brand development strategies that McDonald's employed under Kroc's leadership created the first truly national restaurant brand and established principles that every major corporation would eventually adopt. The introduction of Ronald McDonald in 1963, initially portrayed by Willard Scott in Washington, D.C., transformed McDonald's from just another restaurant into a family destination with an emotional connection to children. The "I'm Lovin' It" slogan wouldn't come until 2003, but earlier campaigns like "You Deserve a Break Today" in 1971 positioned McDonald's not just as convenient food, but as a reward that hardworking Americans had earned. Kroc invested heavily in television advertising at a time when most restaurants relied primarily on local promotion, understanding that national advertising would create demand that would help his franchisees succeed while building the overall McDonald's brand. The company spent over $40 million on advertising in 1970 alone, more than most major corporations invested in marketing their products. McDonald's also pioneered the concept of co-op advertising, where the corporate office and individual franchisees shared advertising costs, ensuring consistent messaging while allowing for local market customization. The famous Golden Arches logo, redesigned in the 1960s, became one of the most recognizable symbols in human history, eventually more widely known than the Christian cross according to some studies. By the mid-1970s, McDonald's had fundamentally altered the American food landscape, but the impact went far beyond just restaurants and into the very structure of how Americans worked, socialized, and thought about time itself. The company had created an entirely new category of employment, fast food work, that would eventually employ millions of Americans, particularly teenagers earning their first paychecks. McDonald's became the first job for more Americans than any other company, creating a training ground where young people learned basic work skills, customer service, and the discipline of systematic operations. The company's emphasis on cleanliness, speed, and customer service established standards that influenced everything from retail stores to service industries across the economy. McDonald's restaurants became informal community centers in suburban America, places where families could afford to eat out regularly, where Little League teams celebrated victories, and where teenagers gathered after school. The predictability and affordability of McDonald's democratized restaurant dining, making it accessible to working class families who previously viewed eating out as a rare luxury. By 1975, there were over 4,000 McDonald's locations worldwide, and the company was opening international restaurants in Canada, Puerto Rico, Australia, and Europe. The transformation of McDonald's from a single restaurant concept to a global empire represented more than just business success. It demonstrated how American entrepreneurial innovation could scale simple ideas into world-changing enterprises. When McDonald's went public in 1965, shares were offered at $22.50 each. By 1971, those same shares had split multiple times and were worth over $3,000, making many early investors millionaires. The McDonald's supply chain became a marvel of logistics, requiring the company to work directly with farmers, ranchers, and food processors to ensure consistent quality and adequate volume for thousands of locations. The company's purchasing power allowed it to demand innovations in food processing, packaging, and transportation that benefited not just McDonald's but the entire food industry. Kroc's insistence on supporting minority franchisees, particularly African American entrepreneurs, helped create a new generation of business owners in communities that had been historically excluded from franchise opportunities. By 1976, McDonald's was serving over 20 billion customers annually, had become the largest owner of commercial real estate in the world, and had fundamentally changed how Americans thought about food, convenience, and business scalability. When Ray Kroc stepped down as CEO in 1973, he had built something unprecedented in human history: a global food delivery system that could produce identical products in thousands of locations while maintaining profitability for franchisees, value for customers, and massive returns for investors. The McDonald's empire had grown from that single Des Plaines location to over 5,000 restaurants generating over $3 billion in annual system-wide sales. But the true measure of Kroc's achievement wasn't just in the numbers, it was in how completely McDonald's had integrated itself into American culture and daily life. The company had created a new vocabulary around fast food, introduced supply chain innovations that influenced every major industry, and established franchise principles that would be copied by everything from hotels to automotive services to retail stores. McDonald's had proven that systematic thinking, relentless standardization, and obsessive attention to customer experience could transform even the most basic human need, food, into a scalable, profitable, globally replicable business model. By 1980, McDonald's was operating in 31 countries, serving over 40 million customers daily, and had become not just a restaurant company, but a symbol of American entrepreneurial success and the power of systematic innovation to change the world. Ray Kroc had taken a 15-cent hamburger and built it into an empire that would eventually feed more people than any organization in human history.